Okay, hello and welcome to the Martech Alliance Marketing Technology Book Club. I'm your host, Carlos Doughty, and I'm also the founder of the Martech Alliance. You can find out more about us at martechalliance.com, but today, more importantly, we are chatting with the fantastic Rand Fishkin about his epic book, Lost and Founder. Rand, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Carlos, thank you so much for having me.
Great, so to give a little bit of background, Rand is the founder of SparkToro. Previously, he was co-founder of mozinbound.org. He's dedicated his professional life to helping people do better marketing through his Whiteboard Friday video series. In fact, I was a long-time watcher of that. In fact, my entire team used to watch it together. He's also his fantastic book and also his blog. With all this going on, Rand, could you talk us through what an ordinary day looks like?
Now, there's not a lot of ordinary days, but sure. Basic story is I live in Seattle, Washington, and I work in this lovely tool shed out back of my house. I'm on the road probably about 100 days a year, so a lot of days are spent, in hotels and at conferences and events for travel, especially with the book just coming out. But when I'm here, I often do a number of calls and discussions with folks to chat about marketing related topics. Recently, I've been trying to learn a lot more about how people do their discovery for PR and influencer marketing and those kinds of things, which are relatively new subjects for me. And then I work with a co-founder, Casey Henry, on SparkToro. Casey is in the Seattle area, but he probably comes to the office once every couple of weeks, and we'll do some brainstorming on the whiteboard and that kind of thing. So a lot of my days are spent in meetings and discussions with folks external to the company, and then a lot of writing, good amount of preparing presentations, that kind of thing.
Cool. Okay, so for anybody that possibly hasn't read the book, if we gave you 60 seconds on the clock, would you mind just giving us your succinct summary and also kind of why any founder, any CEO, any marketer should grab a copy right now?
Yeah, so the basic idea behind the book is that traditional Silicon Valley startup wisdom, including a lot of wisdom around marketing, around how you should raise investment capital, about how you should run a company, biases founders and startups, and even companies that are not startups, to do a lot of dumb things, a lot of things that are not ideal for the kinds of businesses that you or that I might have. And I think because of the popularity, because of the media coverage, because of a lot of the current best practices and cutting edge tactics are directed towards those kind of companies, it can make the rest of us fall prey to irrational tactics that we probably shouldn't be pursuing. And this book is designed to help you avoid that. So it says, oh, look, I went down this path. It wasn't the right one. Here's what I learned from it. Here are some ways you might be able to avoid that. Here are some alternatives to consider.
Thank you. So one of the things that jumped out to me is obviously Moz started as a consultancy, and it seems to be quite a common theme that there's a lot of software companies that originate as a consultancy. In fact, Gary Vaynerchuk's recent launch of Tracer through VaynerMedia is another example. What do you think it is about the DNA of running a consultancy or an agency that sets you up right to have a software company or marketing technology company platform after?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of positives and negatives about being in a consultancy and then building a software company. So one of the biggest positives, of course, is that as a consultant, you're seeing and experiencing a lot of the same problem from many different companies over and over again. And that can certainly be helpful. One of the challenges, though, is that the customers that you have as a consultant are not often great fits for software, which means your business needs to be attracting a different kind of customer who is a right match for software. People who are coming for services, they need services. They need someone who can walk them through it and talk to them and do the work. They don't need just an automated solution. And it's extraordinarily rare that an automated solution can truly replace the process of what a consultant can do. Now, that being said, I think where a lot of folks go wrong is they think, hey, I've built up a successful consultancy. We've got a software product that does some of the things that we did as consultants that solve some of those problems. And then they go out and try and find customers for it, and they can't either affordably find those customers, it just costs too much to find each new customer, or it's the case that they can't get the customers that they are attracting are not right matches for what they've built on the software side. And I think you can solve this sort of the way Moz did, and I suspect the same way that Gary Vaynerchuk solved this, which is to have a platform that is building up the right audience for your product that's not necessarily the right one for your consultancy. And we fell into that by accident. I suspect Gary's probably much more intentional about that.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this one's a bit of a loaded question, but do you think Eric Bree's lean methodology, lean startup methodology, is simply wrong? You talked a lot about EVP versus MVP, or is it actually just about adaptation, interpretation, actually just understanding where it fits?
Yeah, that's exactly the one. So when I talk about the reasons that the MVP process has failed for Moz, I think the biggest thing that I hear from a lot of people who are lean startup enthusiasts is, oh, you interpreted the process too literally. And you can, in fact, this idea of the exceptional viable product does fit into lean startup methodology. So I think it's a matter of interpretation. But the challenge that I see again and again is that folks, myself included, read lean startup, get excited about an MVP, and then launch an MVP publicly. And I think therein lies the problem. If you launch an MVP publicly, people will judge your work, judge your company, judge you based on the quality of that minimum viable product. And what you're really doing is you're experimenting. An MVP is an experiment to say, can this sort of solve this one problem or these problems in a barely acceptable way that indicates there's a market here? And that's great when you are a tiny company with no reputation, right? You're just starting out. Or if you're a bigger company or a company with a reputation or a new founder who has a big audience or whatever it is, but you do it privately, right? You're sort of like, hey, Carlos, I want to show you this thing that I just built and tell me what you think, but don't share it around yet. It's not ready for public consumption. And you're going to think about that product very differently than you'll think about a product where you see me on Twitter and I'm like, okay, SparkToro's new product is finally launched. And then you're going to go and judge it in a very different kind of way. And that's the problem, right? Because people will, when they judge that product launch and you've launched something that is minimally viable rather than extraordinary, you can lose a lot of trust and faith in customers and belief in what you're doing. So that's my challenge with it.
Thanks. And one of the other key things that came out from the book was about this laser focus. What do you do on a daily basis that what's your secret, if you like, to staying really focused?
Okay, this is going to sound weird, but I try not to create work for myself or my co-founder, or when I was at Moz, try not to create new work just because I have time and energy to do it. Right. So, for example, as a brand new company, we closed our funding round, with a bunch of great angels, and I find myself with a little bit of spare bandwidth now and then, which is unusual for me. And so what I have to be careful of doing is saying, hey, Casey, I think we should build this. I think we should build that. Instead, I have to stay focused and say, nope, we said we were going to build this product for this market. Unless I'm doing work that fits with that, it is not worth doing. It's not worth distracting myself. If I want to go, do some side projects or whatever, I'll do them related to personal stuff. But I think staying on target, having a single product that is the best in the world at what it does and is a very narrow thing is going to be, that's what I need to be disciplined about this time around. I tried to do just too much with Moz, and I see so many companies feeling that pressure to build the next thing to try and get growth, when in fact, a lot of times the best growth that you can get is from your existing audience, sometimes even your existing customers, by continually serving them better.
One of the other bits that jumped out, and this I really absolutely loved, was around making sure that you focus on cultural fit before competency. You know, finding those people that really do share common values. But how do you test for that? How do you interview? How do you get people in a room? And let's say 3 interviews, 3 hours. Okay, there may be more, but in those 3 hours, how are we really going to draw out and go, yes, we are from the same tribe. We're going to love working together. It's going to be fantastic.
I think a lot of the times you have to ask about past experiences, because you can say, hey, are you someone who believes in transparency? And they'll say, yes, I do. I'm excited about that. But if you instead say, hey, can you tell me about a time in your past work experience when you wanted to be open about something and you felt like you weren't able to be? And what was the conflict there? And how did it get resolved? What did you do? Right? And then you'll see, here's how hard people fight for it. Here's what they think is truly transparent and not. I think the other thing that you have to be willing to do is to say, you know what? Core values are very hard to interview for. That's a really tough thing to do. And therefore, we have to be willing to bring people on board who might not be a match and to let them go quickly. That's another very hard thing for a lot of teams and companies. They'll say, oh, this person, they're doing good work here. We can't let them go. They're doing high quality stuff. Well, but if they're not a values and a culture match, they don't believe the same things about, especially about people and how people should be judged and how they should treat one another and, what kindness means, that you gotta say no.
It's the impact on the rest of the team as well. It's not assessing individuals as a standalone. It's what impact do they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got, I think one of the hardest things in the world to do is to fire someone. And we've sort of been culturally conditioned to think that is a failure. Like we failed, they failed. No, just wasn't a match. It's okay. It's not your fault and it's not their fault. That can be a powerful realization. I think that when you get to that level of maturity, if you can, it's hard. That can be an extraordinary boost.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's about finding, if it is not the right fit, work it out sooner rather than later, because you're only going to find the right fit by moving on quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you can have that conversation with someone during their interview, on their first day, week 1 and week 2 in, hey, Carlos, welcome to the SparkToro team. I want you to know that if it's not a match between us, it is not your fault and it's not my fault. And we're going to part ways with a handshake and a smile, and we're going to, remain colleagues for the rest of our professional lives. And we promise not to hold it against each other if this doesn't work out, right? This is not going to be like we're dating, right? And then we're angry at each other. Oh, my ex-boyfriend Carlos, oh, he was terrible. No, right? We're gonna promise each other to be cool with it and go in with the expectation that this is what we think the future should look like, and if it doesn't, we're gonna part ways, right? And hopefully, I think the other thing companies should do around that is to build in a really generous severance package to help make that easier on both the managers who have to let people go and the people who get let go themselves.
So transparency is obviously massive to you, and it couldn't be truer just how raw the book is and your blogs are, and just how transparent you really are, which I think is really commendable. There are obviously a lot of people and a lot of brands that talk about transparency, but they're selective with it, which obviously stops being transparent. Do you think every company can really try and embrace it, or do you think actually it's just it either is or it isn't, and it's not going to be for everybody?
Yeah, that's just like any other value. I think you should choose to embrace it because you, the human being person who founded the company or is the CEO, truly believe in it and want to strive to live up to that ideal and want to work with people who do. I absolutely don't think it's right for everyone. And I think if it's not a core value, you are doing yourself a disservice by putting it on your, list of values or trying to live up to it or trying to just say, no, transparency, that's not really what I believe in. I do believe in, I don't know, whatever qualities might be important to you. Perhaps it's just honesty. So it's not that we're going to be transparent, but we will be honest. If you ever hear me say anything, that will be the truth. But I'm not going to tell you the whole truth, right? I'm not going to tell you behind the curtain stuff. I intentionally, keep some things secret that I think are important to keep secret, and that's just okay. I mean, Apple basically has a core value of secrecy, right? One of Steve Jobs' core values was, we keep it secret. No one can know about this. No one can find this phone. No one can see any of these things. Most of the people in the company don't even know what we're working on. Secrecy. So you can run a very successful company with very different kinds of values.
Now, we obviously don't have a time machine, but if you could go back to your time at Moz, would you do things differently, or do you think everything was a necessary learning for what you'll now do at SparkToro?
A little bit of both, right? So depends on how your time machine functions. If you're saying, hey, you have this time machine and you'll know all the things that you know today that you learned through these painful processes, and you can go back in time and do it over, I would change so many things. I mean, I don't think I would have raised that second round of funding. I wouldn't have built the Moz Analytics product. I wouldn't have done most of the acquisitions that I did. I probably would not have stepped down as CEO in 2014. Like a whole ton of things that I would do very, very differently. But that being said, to your point, you don't get the wisdom without the experiences, and especially for folks like me, I know, especially in my younger days and probably still today, that I'm stubborn. A lot of times it takes me going through an experience to learn the lessons and extract the knowledge out of that process. I can't just sort of, read an article online or read a book and get all of the same knowledge, even if it's telling me to do the same thing. So I'm grateful for the experience and for all the learning.
Now, from time machines to crystal balls, if we asked you to look into a crystal ball that you, of course, have lying around,
where do I put that thing?
What do you think the impact of voice marketing is going to be, or if there's anything else you have in your crystal ball in terms of what if you had to make some outlandish predictions and be speculative about what you think will be happening in marketing in the next 12, 24 months?
Interesting. Yeah. Let's see. I think I would say on voice, so voice activated devices, voice commands, I think there will be a lot of growth. I think many people will have them in their homes and potentially even in their businesses, and will use them to do a lot of the tasks that require, running over the computer and doing something manual today, or getting our phone and doing it there. That being said, I don't think that voice search changes much of anything. Me typing in, Googling Christopher Walken movies or whatever it is, right? And me actually saying to my phone, Google Christopher Walken movies. What movies was Christopher Walken in? I still get a screen of results, right? The screen of results is not different because I said it versus I typed it. Therefore, I don't think that'll have a big impact. What I do think is having a big impact on both sides, on voice and on typed searches, is answers. So Google is showing more and more single answers, right? Here's just the answer to your query, not here's a bunch of results. And they do that through featured snippets, but they do it through a lot of instant answer boxes as well. And just, things that they build. I would say the same thing's true on the voice answers side, right? There's no page of results. No one can earn a click there. That feels very, what do I want to say? It feels dangerous for marketers to get addicted to traffic that might be solved right on the page, by a voice answer or through, a single result at the top without requiring click. I think we as content creators and as marketers need to think about deeper problems and make sure we can solve those on our website and that we can rank for those. Otherwise, we could be in trouble as voice matures.
Now, obviously, you've got your hands very full with SparkToro. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So SparkToro is a software company, a software startup, much like Moz was and is. But we are not venture-backed. We're sort of backed by a consortium of angels, about 35 folks, who generously decided that they wanted to support the unique model that we're pursuing, which is one of intentional, profitable growth. And our goal is to build a product that will help marketers solve a particular pain point. That pain point being when you have an audience, a new audience you want to reach, or you're in a new market, you have a new product, we want to help you figure out what are all the publications and people and sources and channels to which your audience pays attention. So for example, Carlos, you and I go ahead and start a video game company, right? And we want to build a great video game it's going to be a racing game, right? We're gonna build the next Mario Kart franchise, and we've got awesome ideas for it. And we build our game, and now we need to go reach the right audience for it. So maybe we know about a couple players on Twitch that we think will amplify this, and maybe we know a few popular game publications, blogs or websites or what have you, that cover new games. But is that where our audience is hanging out? Could we instead say, oh, I want to find all the people who paid attention and played this other racing game that came out 2 years ago, because we think that's our perfect audience. If you like that game, you're going to love this thing that we built. And now go find, I want to know the podcasts and the YouTube channels and the people on Twitch and the people on Twitter and the Instagram accounts and the people on LinkedIn or Facebook or the blogs or the publications that they read or the events that they go to. I want to know all that stuff without paying $25,000 to a PR company to put that list together for me. And that is something that we think our software will be able to solve. You give us a topic, or you give us a particular kind of audience, or you give us an influential publication or account, and we will find, oh, okay, people who like this, people who follow this also follow all these things. People who say they are whatever, video game enthusiasts from the West Coast of the United States, we found that they pay attention to these events, these podcasts, these accounts.
And how soon do you think it will be on the market? Golden question was.
I'm going to guess at least 6 months and maybe more like 9 to 12 months. I think we'll probably have that first beta version, that we share with a few people one-to-one, probably by the beginning of the year. And then my hope is that, by this time next year, maybe a little earlier, like the spring, we'll have a publicly consumable product.
Well, the trending homepage is fantastic. I've been using it, and quite a few people that are big fans. Yeah, it's great. Also,
that's been really awesome to see that take off, and so many people sort of add it to their bookmarks and put it on their homepage of their phone and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've got. You've got the classic bookmarks, and it's just one of my icons. Yeah. I'm just seeing in the background Brotopia. That's on my hit list actually. I need to get around to reading that. I'm just finishing at the moment Geek Girl Rising, and that's where that popped up on the radar to read that after.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of the stories in there are sort of hard to read and require a lot of self-examination. I mean, especially for me, sort of being a white dude tech founder who raised venture capital. Obviously, I'm not in the geography of Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, but there's a lot of introspection that I think Emily's book demands.
Right, we've got one final question, which I was going to ask you, which is beyond SparkToro. Have you got any other projects? Anything else in the pipeline? I know you obviously talk about focus, but is there anything else that is on the horizon?
So, I mean, I think with the launch of the book and SparkToro, I've been pretty overwhelmed, but I have also been attempting to get off the ground a project to help with the coordination of event safety. You know, I've seen a number of people who, almost all men, who've just sort of acted terribly at conferences and events, you know, using them as sort of places to hit on women and to treat them terribly and to make them feel very unwelcome. And these guys will get banned from one event, but then they'll just, you know, oh, I spoke at these 3 places, you know, invite me to your event, and they'll just go on to the next one, the next one, the next one. And so I'm trying to get something together where there's a consortium of folks who can share information about, you know, actions they've taken against speakers or attendees or what have you. My hope was actually to have that ready much earlier, but I'm working with a legal team who is helping me pro bono, so I'm sort of last in line for their assistance. So I still waiting on the legal side, and we'll see where that gets to. But I hope it can come to fruition soon and help make events a little more give sort of codes of conduct and events a little more teeth in dealing with people who would be abusive in those places.
Well, we'd love to support it, obviously. We run a marketing technology festival, and we definitely support that. Yeah,
I would love to get in touch as soon as I have something ready. Let's stay in touch, and would love to be helpful.
Well, Rand, thank you so much again. I do massively appreciate you having taken the time. I love the book. It's been an absolute pleasure. And for anyone listening who hasn't yet got a copy, do grab one. It's fantastic.